Good morning. I'm Harriet Agbenyi. Thank you for joining me on today's edition of Business Morning. It's a midweek edition of the program, and we're live to you on Channels Television, your home for the news. Let's take a look at some of the stories we're tracking on the program as we delve into what the markets will be, how the markets will be reacting post MPC decisions yesterday. That was January 25th. The Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee decided to maintain status quo on all the rates. Now, today, the Central Bank of Nigeria will settle the 7th OTC FX futures contract on the FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange. The contract is put at a notional amount of $274 million. The rates are also expected to be announced later today. At its first monetary policy meeting for the year, the central bank maintained status quo on all rates and signaled it will also leave its currency exchange rate unchanged. The CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, noted that the committee reiterated the need to be more inward-looking and hasten efforts towards economic diversification to support economic growth.
The Monetary Policy Authority had on many occasions and to the extent feasible, taking extraordinary steps to support other policies, as well as compensate for aspects of structural gaps in the economy, even at the expense of its core mandate. The committee specifically noted the positive contribution of agriculture to GDP in the third quarter, mostly attributable to the bank's interventions in the sector. The committee hopes that, given the thrust of the 2017 budget and accompanying sectoral policies, output growth should resume in the short to medium term. The MPC therefore lends its voice to efforts for an early finalization of the 2017 federal budget by the authorities concerned and the resolve to pursue a non-oil-driven economy, as this will go a long way in stimulating aggregate demand and restoring confidence in the economy. The committee also urged the authorities to seriously consider using the public-private partnership model in its infrastructure program as a means of cushioning any possible shocks to budgeted revenue. Committee further noted that inflationary pressures will begin to subside as non-oil output recovers and Naira exchange rate stabilizes. Until then, it stressed, a rate cut would worsen the inflationary conditions, stunt growth, and undermine the current outlook for stability in the foreign exchange market.
So where will the markets go from here? We'll be talking about that in just a bit. In the meantime, Nigeria's external reserves now stands at $28.9 billion, as announced by CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. But Mr. Emefiele warned against reckless depletion of the reserves, giving the assurance that the Apex Bank will continue to make forex available to those who are importing raw materials and supporting the agricultural sector, but not to those who want to engage in less important sectors of the economy. He again restated that the CBN is running a floating regime, but is not running a floating regime, but a managed float. Now, what that means is that from time to time, the Apex Bank will intervene in the market to ensure that the exchange rate does not go beyond expectations, and those interventions would be to moderate the risk as deemed necessary. From yesterday's closing numbers, we see that the Naira to the dollar is still at 305 Naira 50 kobo at the interbank foreign exchange market, but at the black market it continues to widen. That's at the parallel market. It's at about 498 Naira to a dollar, and at the Bureau de Change segment of the market is hovering between 310 and 315 Naira to a dollar. Well, the National Assembly has begun work on the 2017 budget proposal presented by President Muhammadu Buhari almost 6 weeks after. Both chambers commenced debate on the general principles of the proposed 7.2 trillion naira budget, with lawmakers highlighting their concerns with regard to some of the key assumptions of the budget, but unanimously agreeing that there is need to block leakages so as to achieve revenue projections for the fiscal year. This debate is expected to continue today. So let's review the markets from where they finished off yesterday, which was the day the Monetary Policy Committee announced its decisions, and it came in about the same time when the markets were closing. But taking a look at the list from FMDQ OTC's market, particularly for the bonds market, we noticed that investors continue to favor the bond maturing on the 29th of June 2019. That had about 36 deals done and a value of 3.60 billion naira recorded. For the bond maturing on the 18th of March 2036, that had about 26 transactions and a value of 5.3 billion naira realized at the end of the day. But in all, total transactions and came in at 165, valued at 51.52 billion naira. Now, for the Treasury bill segment of the market, that also noticed a kind of tepid movement from investors. But taking a look at the list from FMDQ OTC's market, notice that investors particularly are favoring short to medium dated bills, but mostly short dated bills, particularly the one maturing on the 16th of February 2017 that had deals of 147 recorded and a value of 36.77 billion naira. At the end of the day, total number of deals came in at 935 as investors remain upbeat in that segment of the market, not tepid as I said already, and a value of 252.64 billion naira was realized. At the interbank money market, of course, overnight money contracted about 300 basis points following a 200